Hello and welcome to today's outline of what you need to be doing. So far we have done two of the prep tasks that we will be looking to do similar to and develop in a little bit more of a detailed way come September, and looking at that first 3D modelling unit. And hopefully what you've started to see is that we're building up kind of the understanding of what we are looking at, and researching it and developing it and putting that into a portfolio so that we've got all of that information together and ready to go. So when it comes to the point where we are actually designing our model, we've got all of this research material and all of this understanding of what we're looking at and what we're putting together. All right. So today's task, this week's task, I should say, is a little bit more visual in mind. So let's have a little look. Let's jump to second display and make sure I'm on the right bit. Yep. And as always, I've forgotten to zoom in, so let's zoom in. So you've got your scenario, so you know what we're looking at. We've asked you to look at a room, a lockdown view, and mind map that together and kind of make sure that you've researched that and put that together. And then from that, you're picking about 5 or 6 different models from there, and I've given you an example of the PC setup there. So it might be different pieces that come together to make one final piece. It might be pieces that you've got in one specific place wherever you were looking. Whatever it might be, it's not really too essential kind of what it is, as long as you've got that mix of images and models that you are working on. For this assignment, we're looking at applying kind of the real world visuals that we've got and that we can research of the models that you've chosen into a portfolio, so that we can look at the finer detail and replicate that in some way as we move on and look at the creating our own 3D model and our own 3D version of whatever models you've chosen, remembering it's between 5 and 6 different models that you are going to choose. So when I'm doing my examples, I know I might just be showing you 2 or 3. Make sure that you remember that you need to do it for all of them, okay? Because that's going to be important as we go forward and looking at these this new task now. All right, so what I want you to do is essentially build together a portfolio of image research for the models that you've picked out of your chosen room and your chosen space. So you can do that in PowerPoint, you can do it in Google Slides. I'm going to show you an example of what it should look like, or what it could look like in a second, and go through. But you've got details on there. Now you've got a list that you need to work through, and on that list, as you can see on screen, you've got a couple that are starred. So your own images, images from the internet, and the explanation of your images. You have to make sure that you've got all 3 of those, because all of those are achievable. Okay, your own images, snaps on your phone, I'll show you what I mean in a second, that you can take, you can upload and put into a Google Slides or a PowerPoint nice and easily. Images from the internet, you may be taking a picture of a model that's kind of in situ and is difficult to get round, so you can see other angles behind it, different models of it, different versions of it. If it's in different colours, then you might find those easier on the internet, and that's absolutely fine, because we can label that up as secondary sourced information, and that's not a problem at all, as long as we are explaining what we're looking at. The last one on the list, but the third one that you need to make sure that you do, is an explanation of your images. I want you to make sure you're explaining why you've taken that image, or what that image shows you, or what you found from this image you found on the internet, whatever it might be. I'm going to give you some sentence starters in my exemplar, so that you've got somewhere to start, but you can create your own and develop your own as well. In fact, I encourage you to make sure that you do. All right, you've got 2 others on there that I want you to look at. Printed images, if you've got examples in magazines, in books, or anything like that that might be similar to what you've chosen as your 3D model image that you're researching, then include those as well. Okay, I'm not asking you to rip apart books or anything like that. Obviously you can snap them as well, but you can just keep them separate in this section. You may not have those, you may not have access to that, you may not have magazines lying around with whatever your chosen image is, and that's fine. I understand that this is a difficult time in terms of gathering together what resources we have got and what we haven't. So if you've got those, include them. If you haven't, then don't worry. Screenshots, and I think you should all be able to do this. This shouldn't be too tricky, because what I want you to do is find screenshots of games, or screenshots of 3D images. I've changed that slightly to when I wrote that line there. I could have changed it, but I've forgotten. So if you've got, so I'm going to show you an example of a stereo and a set of headphones, which are the ones that I've been working on at the moment. And I've got a couple of screenshots from games where those is, or characters that might be wearing them. and I want you to do similar. If you're struggling to find that because you've got quite a unique image that you've chosen, see if you can find other people's 3D representations of them. So 3D designs of the model that you've chosen, whatever that might be, whether it's a mug, a glass, whether it's a ship from a movie or anything like that, whatever it might be. Okay, so that you've got some kind of extended research in there in your portfolio. Okay, so you should have roughly, and will hopefully have more than this, but as a minimum, you should be getting about 4 or 5 images for each of your models, okay, which will allow you to develop this really nice visual portfolio of your work, okay, and including your explanations as you go through. All right, so a little bit of a detail of the outcomes, what I'm expecting, but I'm going to show you what that should look like, and then your deadline for this is 24th of June, so next Wednesday. So you've got a bit more time on it, so you can spend a bit more time researching the 5 or 6 models that you've chosen in detail. All right, so this is what I want it to look like. So let's just go to the start of this. So make it nice and clear. My 3D models, you can put your name in it if you so desire on this slide, or you can put it somewhere else. But make sure you're thinking about that professionalism, making sure that it's clear and it's easy to understand. All right, so I've broken mine down. So I'm focusing on the stereo that I did a sketch of before. So hopefully what you're seeing is you've got your mind map with all of that information. You've got the sketch that you've done of some of that detail. You've hopefully developed some of that in your research around copyright and what you might need to consider. So for instance, my one, I'd need to consider the Technics logo. If I needed to change that, change the font, change the name, whatever that might be. So you've got this development of your ideas and your research of the models that you've chosen. So these are just some snaps of it in situ on my desk. Different angles, a little bit of a close-up so I can see what's going on there. So they're my images, just taken on my phone, quickly emailed to myself and then put onto the presentation. And then some images from the internet. So I tried to find ones that I haven't got. So the stereo that I've got is part of a kind of stacking system, and you can see on the images that I found from the web the images of some more of the components. I don't have them all in there because I just use it with my PC. So I've got the amp and the control unit, and that's it. I've not got the CD drive or anything like that. But you can see it on these images here. You can see the CD drive open. You can see the speakers, which are on my windowsill, so you couldn't see those before. You can see the back of it and how it's connected. So it's what I was saying before. You can use the web to support the images that you've taken, so that you might find different views, different versions, different setups of whatever your model is that you're looking at. Okay, so you've got your primary images that you've taken. You've got your secondary images which you've found from the internet. Sorry, wrong button. There we go. Printed images, I've left that blank because I personally didn't have any. I haven't got any kind of more images of that, so I've left that blank. I've included it in there so that if I'm duplicating these slides for my next model, that it's kind of there, and I can, if I've got versions of those, then I can put that in there. All right, so remember, this is images that you might have in magazines, that you might find in books that are lying around that you've got available to you. If you haven't got them, then this is the one slide that you don't need to stress about too much. Screenshots from games. So I've got a couple of screenshots in there. The top left one is the room from the end of Uncharted 4, and you can see, can you see my mouse? Yes, you can. So we've got a stereo just in here. It's a different stereo, it's a different setup, but I want you to be able to show kind of where your models might sit in a gaming space or in a gaming environment, what that might look like. So I've got the stereo component there. I've got a speaker over in the corner on Uncharted 4. This is from GTA 5. This is Franklin's room that you first find, and his stereo is just in the corner on that desk unit there. And then I've just kind of drawn a blank on finding other rooms for putting this exemplar together. So I've found some 3D images of stereos that other people have created, but that might be good for reference images that I might want to use as I'm going through and developing my 3D design later on. And that's fine. Okay, have a look, see if you can get some in situ in screenshots from games themselves. If you're struggling with that, then find 3D images, 3D representations that other people have done that are similar to your model that you're researching. Okay, and then I've got these explanations, just some sentence starters, and this is going to be the same. I've got another example to show you so you can see what I mean. And these will hopefully prompt you. So when taking my own pictures, I noticed in my model that And then whatever you've noticed, you might have a scratch in a certain place, that you might have a dial that you'd need to consider in a certain way, that you might have an LED display that you might need to look at, whatever that might be. And you can repeat that, and you can use that a few times. And then I've gone through and I've given you a kind of a sentence starter for each section. When researching my model on the internet, I found views of my model that were different because, and explain why they were different. I've given you some examples on that last one that we looked at. Again, some printed images of my model that highlighted, and tell me what it highlighted, tell me what you found. And then I've researched some examples of my model in games that are already available. I found that in these games the 3D model was in the background, was a main component of the game, was something that you could interact with, and just explain a little bit about where that model and how that model might have appeared and how it was used. Okay, so you've got nice clear explanations of what you've found, what you've understood from your visual research, and then being able to put that into words. Okay, this might go over a couple of slides, so if you need to add in a few slides for your explanations, that's absolutely fine. All right, make sure you've got details in there about your explanations. These are just starters. Yours should not just be 4 sentences. It should be more detailed than that. Fill out a whole slide on this one, fill out a couple of slides, however much detail you can find, include it. The more you can include, the easier and the more information you'll have later on when you're developing your own 3D design of whatever your model is. Okay, I've done a second one, so the headphones return. So just some images that I took. So standard one of the headphones together, and then one of the cans close up. Kind of the jack at the end, so that you can get an idea of that. So if you were developing that, or if you had that kind of looped around nicely in a nice kind of formation, that you've got that as a reference image as well. I went online, found different colours. The fact that my headphones fold up, and so you've got that view, so that you can see it in a different state, if you like. I've got it in situ there against the CDs or the books, whatever they are, on there. And again, supporting what I've already taken as primary sourced images with some secondary images backed up. Again, I didn't have any printed images, but you might have some magazines or some books that you can reference in there and give you more support. And then these are my games. So I've just tried to find characters that were wearing headphones, and it doesn't matter that they're slightly different. So I've got a Call of Duty one in there where you've got the mouthpiece that works a little bit differently to my own headphones. I've got Aloy's one in there from Horizon, which is almost like a little Bluetooth headset. It's fine. It's just a different way that it's represented in games. And then I've got the last two promotional shot from GTA there, which are very similar to my headphones, and then the ones from Splatoon, which are similar as well, but slightly different. You've got a different format in terms of how it kind of goes over her head, and bits and pieces like that. But again, giving me some reference images, giving me some ideas, giving me some places that I can come back to as I maybe develop my own 3D design of my headphones later on, using this example. All right, and then again, I'm not going to go through them again because they're the same ones, but some sentence starters there for when you're doing your explanations, making sure that you include them in as much detail as you possibly can. 4 sentences isn't enough. As much detail as you can, fill that slide out, do another one after that. However much detail you can get in there of what you found and what you can extrapolate from your images and your research, the better for you. All right, so that's that for that. What I'll do is I shall put that on there as an exemplar, so that you've got that almost as a template to work from, and I will upload obviously this document on the description of the video, and equally on the email that I will send out that you're reading this video, watching this video from. All right, so you've got a little bit longer on this. You've got a week now to focus on this, so give yourself kind of a day, maybe each time that you're doing a different model. So focus on one model, take your pictures, do your research on the internet, find what you can. If you've got printed material, if you've got books, magazines that you can find images in there from, then great, go for it. Screenshots, 3D model shots from different games, from maybe some different 3D modelers that you can use that are similar to yours. with the internet research, with the printed stuff, and with the gaming stuff, remember it doesn't need to be exactly what your model looks like and what you've taken pictures of at the start. It might be slight variations on that, and that's fine. You're building together and understanding a portfolio of what your model could be like, because when you come to create it yourself, you might add your own artistic kind of slant to it, and that's absolutely fine. That's what we want you to do. We want you to develop your understanding of the model itself so that you can then put your kind of own spin on it as you go through. All right. I did 2 examples. You should be doing at least 5, 6 different examples of models, okay, in that detail. So it should be a really nice long slideshow presentation that you're putting through to me. And you'll submit that in a normal way on Moodle. It can be a link to a Google Slides or a PowerPoint that's on OneDrive, or you can upload the actual document, the actual slideshow document. If you're putting lots of images into a PowerPoint, you just might need to watch how big the final file is, because it can ramp up if you're using high-res images, if you're taking your own pictures. So just keep that in mind as you go through. All right, so that's your next task. The task that follows this, which will kind of go over the last week, will be starting to look and choose some of the images and start creating them or designing them in a 3D way, and we're going to look at how you're going to do that. Some of you might be able to do that in Blender. I'm going to share with you another way of how you might be able to do that if you haven't got access to Blender, and if you haven't got access to kind of digital means at all, then we're going to look at how you can do that by hand and get some really nice finished drawings in there as well, so that we can look at it that way. All right, so that's your task for this week. Any questions, email me as normal, and then I will speak to you, and I may well see some of you, you never know, before the end of the summer. All right, good luck, see what you can come up with.